Hello there. You got Doug Gore with the Spray Wash Academy, and today's guest is going to be and Joe. Tell me if I get your last name wrong, but Joe Macomber with Citra Shield. Did I get that correct?
Depends on what part of the country you're in, Doug. Somebody say Macomber, Macomber. So
how do you say it?
I say Macomber.
Macomber. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Citra Shield, and as I've already said, kind of up front with Joe, is that I don't know a whole bunch about his product, but I believe that I've seen a lot of things online where he's been, the product has been beat up, kind of a thing. And there's a lot of people that have tried to say, okay, let's do something different than bleach, and there's nothing going to replace bleach and all these kinds of things. But I think that there are products that are needed for that. And, I think it's time that we start looking at and seeing, is this, let's explore what this product is about. And, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. It sounds like Joe's ready to dive in and go for it. So, Joe, first tell me a little bit about yourself and your product, and then let's just kind of get into some question and answers.
So I've been in this, the cleaning business since 1987. I've had companies up and down the East Coast, have had thousands of employees. And CitraShield was born out of necessity. We used to do things the old-fashioned way and pressure wash roofs, sidewalks, and that type of thing. And we had an accident years ago where someone almost died, and really kind of broke my heart. We got him patched up, but he never worked again.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back to the books, and I developed CitraShield back in 2008, like I said, out of necessity. We didn't want to use harsh chemicals, caustic chemicals, so it took us a while to come up with the correct blend, the correct pH, the eco-friendly characteristics of the product, and the preventative characteristics of the product. So while bleach is a kind of a go-to for a lot of companies, it's a single source product, right? So number one, it does not get rid of any biological growth. It just masks it, where CitraShield actually penetrates any substrate you spray it on and cleans from the inside out. So it decays the roots on its way to the surface. That's why we can spray CitraShield on any substrate. It's not just a roof-only product. You can spray it on coral. You can spray it on sidewalks, pavers. It doesn't matter. Anywhere there's a biological growth, CitraShield will remove it. And I'm proud to say the product has never failed, not even once. It does take time. So we ask up front, listen, that algae or biological growth didn't get on that building in a day. It's not going to go away in a day. Give me 6 months, give me 3 months, and let Mother Nature do all the heavy lifting. We don't have to cover plants. We don't have to worry about destroying metal, rusting out anything, because it's not caustic. It's a 7.6 pH product that works over time. That's kind of the gist of the product.
The gist of it in a nutshell. So it sounds to me like the biggest drawback, if you'll call it that, is that somebody goes and sprays it on a building, let's just say, and when they leave, it looks the same as when they pulled up, and that could be a very negative thing for the building owner that has paid whatever it is that they've paid to have that building clean, and yet it's not clean. So on the flip side of that, do you feel like it's going to be a longer lasting clean, or do you have any studies on that versus, if I go out and I clean a hotel, let's say, and I use, bleach, I know that, I'm probably going to start seeing stuff come back. It depends, right? Depends on north face, south face, whatever, all of those different factors. So what are you seeing, or what kind of studies, research have been done in that realm where you can say, okay, it's longer, it's not as long? How does that work out?
So our best case scenario, and again, it depends on what part of the country you're in, right?
Right.
My best case scenario, we cleaned a building in Maine, and the biological growth stayed off that building for 7 years. Now that, to me, that's a terrible business model. I'm not going to see you for 7 years. You moved away. So what we've done at CitraShield Cleaning Systems is develop a maintenance plan where we come and we maintain your property. In Florida, for instance, we'll do roofs on an annual basis. We'll do sidewalks twice a year. But as you move north, it's once a year. Try and do everything once a year, and we try and coordinate it with a whole building envelope where we'll spray the roof, we'll clean the glass, we'll spray the walls, we'll treat the driveways, parking garages, whatever the case may be. And that way there, it creates a real business plan where if you think like I'm going to see this guy every 7 years, you might as well close the doors, right? Because you're always trying. I equate that kind of logic like the guy who builds the house. He's always looking for the next house to build, and it takes him a year to build the house. And so why, if you're going to build that house, why don't you have a maintenance plan with the house to keep it, whatever. And I kind of took a page of that out of the roofing contractor's book, right? What do you want to protect? Your asset. So the roofing contractors go, a lot of them now will spray CitraShield 30 days after they put on the roof and put these homeowners and HOAs right on the contract. And he maintains that property with a guarantee that it'll never get algae buildup on it. So that's
well, in today's day and age, that's going to be getting a little bit harder as well because, a lot of the shingles are AR shingles nowadays, algae resistant shingles, supposedly. And they've gotten a lot better at that. When they first started coming out, I think with the AR shingles, they would, if it didn't get evenly coated, you would get an algae that would start growing on it. It would be thick and heavy and just in one spot where they had missed it, and it made it sometimes even more noticeable. But so what would your thoughts be on somebody coming through to do a cleaning with bleach to make it look great that day, and then coming back with CitraShield, maybe 6 months later?
Or 6 days later, it doesn't matter. A lot of time, that scenario, let me back up. We have authorized CitraShield applicators. They have to ask me or corporate permission to do that because they will lose their application status. Now, when am I going to permit it? The guy's daughter's getting married. There's a big function going on at this house. Like I said earlier, if the algae didn't get there overnight, it shouldn't go away overnight. And the caustics do unseen damage to the property. And I know, I've had these arguments online all the time, but caustic's caustic. It reacts with metal. You spray bleach on metal, something's going to happen, right? Something's going to turn rusty, and it may not be the day you do it, but it might be 6 months, it might be a year down the road. All of a sudden, the fasteners start rusting out. And we have done a study with that down in Florida where a roof was bleach bathed or soft washed every year, and the roof decayed out in 12 years, and it should have been a 30-year tile roof. And I was there when they started taking the roof off. All the fasteners had decayed all the way through the plywood, all the way through the membrane, which caused all the leaks. So you got a $200,000 roof was prematurely destroyed, but it looked good with sodium hypochlorite.
Well, some of that, though, I think is not, I'm going to say, not the fault of the sodium hypochlorite. And I agree with you that it's very caustic and causes damage and, that sort of thing. But it also depends on how it's done and where it's done and why it's done. And, there's a lot of, the saying of bleach cowboys out there where they spray it up there and then they leave it, or they don't rinse properly, or, things of that nature. Surely if something already has rust and you spray sodium hypochlorite bleach on there, you can exacerbate that damage. And that's where neutralizers can come in and can help. For me, it's about whether or not it's done properly. That becomes kind of the issue there. And so you're saying too that CitraShield is a product that you don't rinse off. You spray it on, you leave it on. Unlike bleach, where you should be thoroughly rinsing when you're done with that. And like, how does that affect things like windows and, so on down the line with that?
So there's no issues. You can spray it on anything. You can
Mhm.
spray it on glass. You can spray it on metal, aluminum. There's nothing you
But if
can't
you,
spray
but
it on.
here's my point with that, Joe. If I spray a building, let's say, or let's say
Hmm.
it's a roof or a house or whatever, and I'm spraying around the windows, on the windows, all that. I can't leave it on the windows, can I?
No, you would rinse it off. It's like a
Okay. So if
if
I
the
rinse it off the windows, I'm rinsing off what's down below it. I just have to reapply below that then.
no, you don't. You just have to. Once the product's dry, you're done. It doesn't matter. It'll start doing its thing. It actually works with water.
Mhm.
Water helps it penetrate the substrate. So I know my label says you got to wait 12 hours, and that's because I've had people put it on in the rain
Mhm.
while it's raining, physically raining. So I put the 12-hour label on there. But quite frankly, as soon as the product's dry, you want to pray for rain because
Mhm.
that's when you get your quickest, your fastest results. Last month, we did 35 miles of sidewalk, and they came perfectly clean in 2 weeks because we got heavy rains for about 3 days.
Mhm.
And they look and they're still cleaning up, but I mean, it looked like they were power washed after two
Mhm.
weeks.
So is it something then that, based on what you're saying there, that I could theoretically spray CitraShield on something and then, 2 weeks later come back and do a, not necessarily a light rinse, but like a misting of it, throw some water on there and to help speed up that process? Or, can I rinse it in 2 or 3 weeks from there and have it all come clean? How does that work out?
You could, but it's not necessary.
Mhm.
If you educate the customer, it's not necessary. We're doing it in Washington D.C. You want to talk about having to educate people?
Mhm.
They don't. Everybody tells stories down there. So if we can do it in DC and have a spray and walk away and get paid, we can do it anywhere.
Mhm.
That's and that all comes down to credibility. And I tell people, whether it's $100,000 job or $1,000 job, I don't need your money that bad. My reputation's worth more than anything you can pay me. So
Mhm.
I am not going to spray something on your building that's not going to work. And as I said earlier, it's never failed. And I thought we failed one time at Disney. We did the monorail. Hadn't been cleaned or touched in 39 years. The thing was completely black. I sprayed the Citra Shield on, went back. 6 months to the day, it was perfectly clean. That's how long it took to decay all that algae, that 39 years worth of growth.
And now, did you have to go back and do multiple applications? So you
No,
applied? No, it's just a
one
single
application.
application.
One application. A lot of people ask me that. If I go back, would it help? No, because CitraShield's got these penetrating agents in it that every time it gets wet, it seeps deeper and deeper and deeper into the substrate until if you sprayed a paver on a driveway, it would penetrate all the way to the ground and then start working its way out, decaying its way out,
Mhm.
decaying the biologic as it works its way out. So it's really quite a neat product. And like I said, I'm not chasing roofs. The roofs are chasing me because we're
Mhm.
doing thousands of miles of sidewalk and with hardly any water compared to pressure washing,
Mhm.
and they come cleaner and stay cleaner longer.
Mhm.
So we have all these communities up and down the East Coast that we guarantee will stay clean with our maintenance schedule, and people love it. They especially down here in Florida. If you come down here in Florida in July, everything's green and slippery and nasty. You go to a CitraShield community, it looks just like it's January. They
Mhm.
never get dirty. They always stay clean.
Well, it's what you're describing is the same thing that I started here in Louisiana with annual roof cleanings, maintenance programs to try to keep up with it. Because originally when things came out, it was always trying to give a 5-year warranty and on your roof cleanings and that sort of thing. But the 5-year thing, you're basically really tossing the dice with, because depending upon the area, right? We're in the heaviest algae belt there is. So typically, and I would tell people, you're looking at how long is the roof cleaning going to last? 3 to 7 years. If you catch it, at the 3 years, well, sorry. If you catch it at the 7 years, well, great. But so that's where the annual maintenance program came up, where we could just kind of keep it clean every year, and we didn't have to use as harsh, of a mix and that sort of thing. So the initial cleaning and then follow up cleanings were less than that. So you're kind of saying along the same line where you're doing your initial application the first time you go out, and then maybe every 6 months after that you're going out and reapplying.
Depend on the substrate. Like I said, roof would be annual. Sidewalks would be twice a year, probably in Louisiana too, twice a year. Yeah. And people are pretty comfortable with it because number one, let's take that 35 miles of sidewalk we just did. If you rolled in there with your pressure cleaning crew, you would be there, I would say, a month to do 35 miles.
Mm-hmm.
We did it in 5 days with 2 men.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not inconveniencing the customer. We're not blowing through millions of gallons of water. We're not running pollutants down into the storm drain. We're simply applying the CitraShield and walking away. And it's all eco-friendly. So if it goes down the storm drain, it doesn't hurt anything. And your sidewalks, pool deck, umbrellas, whatever you spray it on, stays clean all year long.
So, going down that line of thought with the going down the storm drains and all that. So you're saying that the Clean Water Act, all that kind of stuff, you pass the Clean Water Act, your stuff can go down the storm drains and all that.
Yes, because once it's dry, it's pH neutral, so it can get wet. I can't put it down the storm drain. I couldn't empty my tank down the storm drain. Nobody can.
Right.
But once
that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, once it's on the ground, and literally it takes about 10 minutes for it to dry, it's completely safe for pets, animals, the like.
So, again, going down that road a little bit, does it suds up at all?
No
sudsing at all.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you put the CitraShield in your application tank first and run the hose in, yeah, it's going to bubble up, but when you're mixing it, if you put CitraShield in the water, no, it doesn't bubble up.
Mm-hmm. So, and my thought process was, if it dries, right, then it rains half hour later, is that going to create a kind of a soapy slurry going down into the storm drain?
No.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying, so it's a mixed product that you mix with water. So now, is this something that a proportioner can be used, or is this something where it has to be batch mixed in a tank to using the water for the emulsification, or how is that working?
Yeah, it has to be batch mixed.
Mm-hmm.
For the universities and actually Disney as well, we sell it to them ready to use because they don't want their people mixing chemicals. So we make a ready to use product, and then of course we make the concentrated for contractors. And there's different blends, so your initial mix is always 5 parts water, 1 part CitraShield, and then as your maintenance blend, it's 9 parts water, 1 part CitraShield. So your product cost is almost that of SH. Mm-hmm. Once you get to the maintenance piece. And
depending on the area of the country, because some areas are more. So how much is this? How is the CitraShield sold? And is it do you have a dealer network yet? And I guess so. So what's the cost? How is it sold? Is it packaged in 1 gallon, 5 gallon, 55 gallon totes, drums, whatever?
Pretty much. We got 1 gallon. 1 gallon ready to use, 1 gallon concentrate on Amazon. We sell about 100 pallets a month. But that's more like for the mom and pop, the homeowner, the do-it-yourself guy. The real stuff we sell in 5 gallon pails, drums, and 275 gallon totes. And then for the universities, we make a 330 ready to use tote, which is the equivalent of a 55 gallon drum.
Okay, so 330 gallon tote that's ready to spray. About how much area would that cover?
A 5-gallon pail does 3,000 square feet. So 40,000 square feet.
So you said a 5-gallon pail does how much now?
3,000.
3,000 square feet, and that is the
So that's 33,000 square feet. It'll do a 55.
so a 55 will do 33,000 square feet, and that's of a 55 gallon of concentrate, correct?
Or 330 ready to use. They're one and the same.
Okay.
But then when you come to the maintenance piece, that same 330 gallons will do double that, because it's going to be 9 to 1.
And then how do you recommend that it's applied? Is it applied something like with a 12 volt, a P40? Is it downstream? Well, not going to be downstream. So how are you recommending it to be applied?
We apply it. All my applicators use agricultural type sprayers. Okay, so as far as an application, we use gas powered agricultural type sprayers, but you can use a 12 volt system. You can use, a simple pump sprayer. However, it has to be batch mixed. That's the only caveat. We've tried it with proportioners, and it seems like every time the proportioner or the machine burps, you get a different ratio at the tip. So, the machine pulses, you get a different ratio. It's like we've even tried to downstream it with injectors. So,
well, I guess the only thing I would say on that is that there are a lot of different. I'm going to use the word proportioners out there. If it's a true proportioner, you shouldn't get that. I mean, because it's drawing from their expensive metering valves.
Yeah.
And so, but you're not getting them where they're being blended right there in the hose, kind of a thing, not sitting in a batch tank kind of thing. So, and I guess that's where I was saying, where if you've got you're mixing them together ahead of time, that's fine. I would think that a proportioner would work, but I think you would have to use a true proportioner made by Tim Hazelton, the inventor of it. So without that, if you're using if it's one of the cheaper, I'll use the word blend manifolds and all that, I could see where there's going to be an issue with that.
Yeah, we've tried it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept getting different, and I don't know Tim from Adam, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we just, me as the manufacturer, I know for a fact that batch mixing works. So
yeah,
if it's not broken, we're not going to fix it.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if somebody buys a 5-gallon, somebody buys a 5-gallon bucket, where would they get something like that? Do you have a dealer network yet, or how is that set up?
We have some dealers, and you can still buy it. You can buy from any PPG store; they have availability. But the best, the fastest, simplest way is to send info at CitraShield or Joe at CitraShield.com. We'll process your PO. We ship it next day. Depending on where you are, you get it within 3 or 4 days tops.
So what is shipping on something like that typically cost? Because if it's not listed as a hazardous chemical of any sort, shipping should be fairly easy.
It's super easy. It's just crazy expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
Anywhere in Florida, I can ship a pallet of product for $150. Then, or I can ship out of my Texas, like I probably ship out of my Texas warehouse. But he's 6 1/2 other, but common carrier, they got you by the shorts, because you're going to pay no matter what.
You're going to pay either way, no matter what.
I just shipped a pallet to my warehouse in Maine, a pallet of 36 5-gallon pails to my warehouse in Maine, and it cost me $630.
Wow.
Shipping. So, that adds a little bit to the bottom line.
And I guess that's where I'm asking too. You have some dealers that are selling product for you that may have stock in the area, or that if somebody wanted to try the product out, what is the best way that you would recommend doing that?
I would go on Amazon and buy a gallon of the concentrate because it's cheaper than I can ship it.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally cheaper than I can ship it.
So they get a gallon of the product, and about how much square footage would that cover?
That's going to make 6 gallons. So it's going to do 900 square feet.
Mm-hmm. So they could do a portion of a roof and a portion of a house, and just and some concrete and all that, and just let it sit for a while and see how it works out.
Yeah.
So if they bought that gallon on Amazon, what would that cost be to them? Do you know?
I think it's like around $50.
Okay. So, because to me, when I look at things like this, and I mean no disrespect to you at all. This is more meant for what's normally set out in these. When you look at different things, people saying, "Oh, snake oils" and this kind of thing. I think like in a product like this, that's perfect. $50, I would try. Because there's a lot of times now where I can't even tell you how many times I've had people say, "Well, I don't want bleach used," or whatever the case may be, or is there an alternative product? It's good to have the alternatives. And for me, I would want to, before I tried to sell a CitraShield job, that's, I guess, is how I would say it. I would want to see it work. I would want to see the process. I would want to kind of document kind of a thing. So if it were me, I would buy some. I would spray it on, some location that I could go back and I could check at, every, 6 weeks or so, and see how it did. And then even how long it lasted over time. So I think that's a very viable and very doable thing to say, $50 shipped to me. I get to try 900 square feet ish. I think that would be a no brainer. That's not a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah. That's all my sales professionals do every single day. Exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done demos recently, like at Notre Dame University. We just literally last week did the Capitol building at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd never even heard of CitraShield. I explained the chemistry to their chemical people. They said, "Oh, this is definitely going to work,"
Mm-hmm.
and they were fine with it. And it was a very high end job.
So along that lines, what about like natural stones and things like my brain's just going all over the place right now. I'm thinking about it's right there. I have the pictures in my head. I can tombstones, things like that.
Yeah,
you've got all kinds of stuff.
Tombstone, sandstone, cut coral, coquina. We've done it all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that we haven't done with this product.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, and I'm pretty proud of it, it's never failed.
Mm-hmm.
The only time we ever have an issue is applicator error.
Mm-hmm. So what have been some of those issues that are applicator error?
Mixing, not. So we had an additive in there. So when you spray it, it turns like a tea color. So that you sprayed. So let's say you're spraying a roof, and then it's 12 o'clock. Oh, I got to go to lunch. And they forget what they did. And the roof's dry because I go to lunch for 45 minutes. That kind of thing. And I think I stopped here. So then you come back 3 or 4 months later, and there's a big holiday, just like at the hockey rink. There's a big holiday right down the middle of the ice. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff happens. But we do have that additive in there, so that you've got coverage.
And that additive rinses out over time.
Yeah, about 2 days it goes away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But you got, like I said earlier, I ran thousands of employees, so you have to have all kinds of checks in place, and that was one of them for the supervisors. Hey, Doug, you missed that half of the house over there. It's still not turned. And the other piece that I like about it is I'll go behind the pressure washer guys and the soft washer guys, and I'll spray CitraShield, and all that biological growth that's still there turns tea color. because all the pressure washer did was move the spores around, and all the bleach stuff, all it did was change the color, dye out the color. So the roots are still there. That's what I'm trying to say. And we just did it actually at the University of South Florida last week. They had team 1 come through with a bleach and a rinse. They had team 2 come through, power wash it. Then we had us come through with just CitraShield. Then the following week, we came back with and just did the other 2 sections, and they all turned bright orange, just like they were never touched. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like I said, I think it's worth exploring, and I think it's worth looking at. And it's the same thing with the rejuvenators that they're coming out with. The oil rejuvenators for the roofing and all that. I guess some of the caveats on that are going to be that the roof manufacturers, what they recommend and what they allow and what they don't allow and all that. Have you had any interactions with roof manufacturers and shingle manufacturers and what they've said?
We have a GAF. I think they're the largest shingle man. We have a letter of recommendation from them.
Oh, very cool.
We've got a letter of recommendation from Fibertite TPO Roof. The hardest one was Duralast. We have a recommendation testimonial from Duralast, Firestone, 2001. There's another one. Basically all of them. We've had.
So that's interesting. So just, before I got on this call with you, I was talking to somebody else about TPO roofs, and what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that the manufacturer recommends a maintenance schedule for that roofing product, as with virtually all of them, right? So when you look at that, if it's something that you could sell a product like this where it's not even dirty yet, or because it's part of that maintenance program getting in there, that could be a really good thing to do, and very helpful and very profitable at the same time, provided you're getting enough coverage and all that sort of thing. So do you happen to know what it is cost per square foot for application? I guess I could calculate that out as well, but do you happen to know that?
The product basically is about 3.5, 3 to 4 cents a square foot for product cost.
Right.
That's that, and whatever your labor is in your market is what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think that's probably pretty comparable with bleach.
Yeah, and I can back it up even more, Doug, because you are going to save so much more labor with my product versus bleach. I don't have to bag gutters. I don't have to cover bushes, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about damaging anything. I don't have to worry about windows. So if you put a CitraShield team next to a soft wash team, we're going to do 3, maybe 4 times the amount of work than you are, to 4 to 1. 4 to 1. So the product cost can be 10 cents a square foot because our labor cost is going to be 4 times less than a normal guy.
The biggest drawback or hiccup to that is just that it doesn't come clean quickly. That's
the only difference. And I've never had a problem selling against bleach guys or CitraShield. Once it's explained out, and people are smart, especially corporate guys, they're smart. Smart. They know that stuff didn't get there overnight. We're doing $1 million jobs, not $1,000 jobs. So it's a little, we're taking care of a lot of the VA facilities because, number one, they're not allowed to use bleach at the VA. So it's the only product they could use.
And there are a lot of places that are not allowing different chemicals and that sort of thing. So being able to get past those would be a really good thing. Well, Joe, I really appreciate it. And are there any closing thoughts or closing things that you want to put in there before we call it a day?
Just a couple things, like maybe for your audience, know what you're buying. I read a lot of these new guys on the forums, and you can use this chemical, that chemical, but you got to know what you're buying. Right now, there's somebody pushing this hydrogen peroxide with KOA in it, which will destroy aluminum, but no one tells you that.
Right.
But I'm involved in a class action. I'm an expert witness that this KOA hydrogen peroxide solution destroyed all the gutters in an entire neighborhood. And so I just buyer beware.
Right.
Know what you're spraying.
And that's something that isn't discussed. You're absolutely correct.
You know.
So how would somebody get in touch with you? And yeah, I know they can find your product, but it's CitraShield.com, and you gave your email address, but give me your email address or phone number, whatever you want to throw out there real quick.
You could get me at Joe@CitraShield, that's CitraShield.com, or info@CitraShield.com, 800-622-1032. Ask for me. I'm a open book. I'm happy to help. And if you have any questions, especially about the maintenance program, let's get the community, the Spray Wash Academy community, educated on how to build a real business.
Sounds like a plan. Well, I appreciate you, Mr. Joe, and hang out for 1 second while I go ahead and end this. But I appreciate y'all. And if y'all need any questions from Joe, just reach out to him.